You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we are discussing, amongst other things, England's second riotous victory over Pakistan on their tour. Bazball marches on, unstoppable, as England make sure they continue to claim themselves as the best team in the world at one sport. I am joined by Ross Legg. Ross,
Hello.
how are you?
Yeah, I'm marvellous. It's a bit cold in London, so hence they've got like a half neck on and a scarf wrapped round and the heating on. Yeah, it's snowing here.
Yeah, it was pretty Baltic yesterday. Snow came down. I was on my way home from London, and quite a few snowmen have popped up on the common near me. So that's nice, full size, human size snowmen. I don't think I've actually seen one like that before. So that was nice. Nice little festive gift.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, isn't it?
It's sad you didn't sing that for us, but you know, we
Copyright, Max. I'm thinking ahead.
That's true. Yeah, YouTube with your beautiful tones as they are, YouTube will instantly pick that up and tell us we can't have any ads. So no, we've learned that the hard way with our Christmas specials. Right, before we get into it, Ross, first things first, as always, can we have some messages?
Yes, you can have some messages. We are delighted to announce that we have a Patreon channel. Is it channel? Patreon account, Patreon Discord. We've got all kinds of different stuff, and we absolutely love it. We've started doing exclusive shows for Patreon where we bring members of our Patreon onto the show. So if that sounds like what you want to do, then all it takes is you signing up and being part of the elite Patreon group. So yeah, and all those patrons that we do have already, we love you very much. So thank you for doing it. We also love all of our followers on Twitter and Instagram, and we've had significant engagement over the last kind of couple of months on there. And we took a bit of a break this week because what do we really need to say? England are the best team in the world. We don't need to rub that in, do we, Max? Doesn't matter if that's not the case in other sports, but cricket, no point rubbing salt in the wounds.
No, I think everyone knows it by now, don't they? So why bang on about it? Since you mentioned it, Ross, how depressed were you on Saturday?
Well, I did tweet, but the last tweet I did was around I'm a Spurs fan, a Rajasthan Royals fan, and an England fan. My 31 years on this planet is full of pain and misery, really, when it comes to sport. So yeah, if the Indian fans listening to this, that you've had it so good for when you've got a Virat Kohli of the world. So it's very very fortunate, I suppose. Unfortunate for England to lose, but it's like T20 cricket. Knockout football, high variance.
Absolutely. Not always the best team wins, but the boys did good. We're proud of our boys.
We're proud of our boys, yeah.
Proud of our boys. And I'm looking forward to the Euros in 2 years and the World Cup in 4 years when we get back to the world of England fans going on about the golden generation and inordinate amounts of pressure on a bunch of still quite young men. And we inevitably crash out and the cycle repeats. So look out for that one. But the cycle, as it is for England Test cricket, is well and truly in force, isn't it, Ross? As England have, we doubled our wins away in Pakistan in a very short space of time. This time it was over to Malton, and England, interestingly, with Ben Foakes fit, opted not to bring him back in, but instead picked Mark Wood for the extra pace. So we will come to that selection decision.
That's gutting for the purists, that, isn't it? The purists of Test cricket, and probably you as being the biggest Ben Foakes stan we've got.
Absolutely, but wasn't a bad call in the end, was it? Let's be honest, because England ran out victors after 4 days of actual Test cricket. That's another point we'll come to later. But it was a really good battle. It started with England setting a good platform with Ben Duckett and Ollie Pope scoring nicely, followed by a little wobble and some very important late runs from Mark Wood, taking England to 281. And Pakistan's innings followed quite similar suit, really. Although a couple of early wickets, they then recovered and looked well on course to at least match England's total before a little bit of Robinson magic did for Babar Azam, and the rest of the side meekly surrendered, leaving England with a solid first innings lead, which they looked very much like taking into the distance and not looking back. But cue the third collapse of the game, I suppose. And Pakistan had something that they felt was very chaseable, and we should give them credit for actually trying to chase it this time. But alas, they fell slightly short. As the aforementioned Mark Wood picked up 4 wickets. And once again, it was some magic. This time from Anderson, followed by Robinson, followed by Mark Wood with 3 unbelievable bits of bowling to remove the danger men for Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
And as it was, England won with just 20-odd runs to spare. But I was talking about magic, and the real magic of the game, Ross, was the debutant, wasn't it? Our own mystery spinner. Once again, I will take credit for saying they should have picked him in the first one, although it wasn't a hard one to say, especially after Zaid Mahmood's attempt at playing cricket. But Abrar Ahmed.
Mm-hmm. I like you say he's our very own. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that. Yeah.
Podcast's very own Abrar Ahmed.
Yeah, he was spectacular, wasn't he? 11 wickets in the match, a brief cameo at the end, which well, it was 17 of not many balls. It sent some shivers, no doubt, up England's spines. And it was interesting because old Abrar Cadabra, he did produce moments of magic in the game where Pakistan's bowling unit didn't give him much support. And there's been classic kind of what. In hindsight, wouldn't it have been great if we did pick him in the first Test match? But he impressed here, Max.
He did, yeah. He bowled really nicely, and obviously England historically struggle with mystery spinners, and we saw that once again. But I don't know what you thought, but I thought there was something of the Rashid Khan about him with the way he bowled. I don't know if you sort of noticed, like with the variations, a lot of finger.
The back of the hand.
Yeah,
it's the back of the hand. The back of the hand googling gives it the scrambled seam every opportunity to do, and it can go either which way, right?
But there was clearly a lot of use of the fingers to flick it, which is sort of why Rashid Khan's so difficult to pick. And that's what sort of reminded me of that, because England obviously struggled with that. There was the look on Ben Stokes' face when he was bowled in the first innings was absolutely priceless. And it was a game of priceless looks on people's faces when they got done by good deliveries. So I quite enjoyed that. But yeah, what Pakistan will be ruining for not picking him in the first Test. Although I suppose there's every chance on that pitch that it would have made no difference whatsoever.
Yeah, it was interesting, right? Because Pakistan actually tried to win this game. Which was nice. And England did leave the door open for them, where England were in a pretty commanding position. They were very much winning the Test match from the outset. Even though they were 180 for 5, it felt like England was somewhere. And that might just be our English bias, Max, but it just felt that we were going at over 5 and over. We'd still lost some wickets. Old England, we would have been, 50 for 5 in that situation, and hoping that Joe Root would produce some magic. But here, it just, I don't know, there was a calm sense. And if we got up to about 250, we were going to be well in the game. And as you mentioned, Mark Wood's cameo got us up to that kind of 280 mark. And yeah, it kind of felt that, do you know what, that is not a bad total. But it was England's pace of scoring that really set this up again, Max. And you mentioned before that this was only a 4-day Test match in the end. And so I saw someone reference Fergie time for England, where we pick up kind of late wickets. I'm not sure you can call it Fergie time if it's a day 4, session 2, can you?
No, but so much had happened, it almost felt like it had gone down to the 5 days, didn't it? It had that sort of weird feeling about it. The game had moved so quickly that you could have been forgiven for thinking it had gone the full 5. But it was in so much contrast to the game at Pindi. Properly good battle Test cricket, both sides well in it, both with a mini collapse, some moments of magic, some star performances, and ultimately 2 teams going at it the right way. Like you said, Pakistan actually tried to win this one, and it was interesting to hear them say sort of it was that overnight period where England were, what was it? I think they were 202 for 5 or something. They'd sort of matched Pakistan's first innings score in England's second innings when they were setting the target. And Pakistan was saying, well, we believe, if they leave us with anything around 350, we totally believe we can chase that. We did it in Gaul on a turning track, and we can do it here. And it was really interesting to hear that. Well, that way of approaching the game, bearing in mind, not just 5 days ago, or whatever it was, they had an opportunity to chase down the same score ish on the most batting friendly track I can remember in my entire life, and they didn't really try. So I don't know if what happened was they listened to the podcast last week and Jack's complete evisceration of Pakistan for being complete cowards actually spurred them into life, and they thought, actually, no, Jack's right. We need to stand up here and be counted, and this is very important. And if so, credit to them and credit to Jack. But it was a complete turnaround from the way they played. But all the better for it, obviously. And Sword Shakeel, I think we should give a lot of credit to as well. Just in his second Test match, he's batted really nicely. So
yeah, it's been a fantastic start.
Player.
It's been a fantastic start for him, and yeah, we might turn around and say that you want to bat on Rawalpindi's track, just like Imam Haq loves to do. But he started really well. I think he's got 270 runs in 4 innings, so an average of 67. So he's a grafter. He's a battler. I think the left-handed nature of him actually goes in his favour, especially coming up against kind of the England bowling lineup. He's particularly gone after Jack Leach with reasonable success. But it was his dismissal, Max, that got the Twitter police in a huff about poor umpiring. And you're the resident umpire in this. I mean, I do have the ECB qualification because I was very bored in lockdown once.
Yeah, I signed up for it, never did it.
Yeah, well, that's the difference between you and me. I deliver, and then
when you fart, you follow through, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It was given out on the field. And Max, I'm looking at this and I'm saying that there isn't conclusive proof to overturn this decision. Ollie Pope's gloves, it's. Where are you sitting on it?
I think he grounded it.
You think? Okay, fine.
I'm fairly confident that ball has touched the floor, and it's not been taken cleanly. And I can understand why anyone would be very disappointed at that decision. But I can. You are right. When the soft signal is out, you have to be 100% sure that it wasn't out to overturn it. And I think that's the issue with soft signals. To be honest, I hate to agree with Virat Kohli and his maintenance that soft signals shouldn't be a thing, but I do think that if the umpire isn't sure enough on the field to give it, I'm not sure whether them sort of prejudicing the decision of the third umpire who's looking at it on video is the right way to go. Obviously, you've got all the caveats about foreshortening of the lens and all that stuff that makes it look like the ball hasn't gone in properly, but I think in this case, it did look to me like the ball was touching the floor at a point, and I couldn't see any glove underneath it. So I think Pakistan can feel a bit hard done by,
a little bit aggrieved
with that. But it's another victory for England's plan B of trying to strangle people down the leg side.
Yeah,
which worked really well in Rawalpindi. It worked again here when they were struggling to buy a wicket. It's an interesting tactic. Seems to be bearing fruit.
Yeah, and I remember when they were trying to do that for Steve Smith. With pretty much zero success because he hit about 500 runs in a couple of games. But it's interesting you mentioned Virat Kohli, Max, because we've talked about the magic of Abrar. We've talked about Shakeel kind of taking to Test match cricket quite nicely. But it's on the England side where Harry Brook has taken like a duck to water. And batting extremely well overseas, registered another century in this game. And Ben Stokes has dubbed him potentially the next Virat Kohli as a all three format player due to his all three mat works. Yeah. All three mat player because of his simple yet devastating technique. Max, where do you sit on this? Getting a bit carried away on some batting friendly surfaces against a third or fourth line Pakistan Test bowling lineup?
Potentially, yes. It's a very English thing to do, isn't it? Build up young talent and only see them crumble under the pressure that you've built on them. But I mean, there's a lot to like about Harry Brook, isn't there? To be fair, and Ben Stokes is obviously trying to build this like positive atmosphere and this positive vibe around the side, so you can see sort of why that stuff's coming out, and really trying to build the guys up and really lift their confidence and get them playing in that sort of free way that they do, because that's so integral to the way England are trying to approach cricket at the moment. But watching Harry Brook um, in that Rawalpindi test and again in this test, I mean, you you do have to admire the technique, because I think I think that's what impressed me so much with the way he scored the runs so quickly last time out, was just the simplicity with which he did it.
Yeah, the
It was just,
control.
it was just pure timing, technique, just for the most part orthodox, brilliant cricket, and then when he wanted to, he just brought out some nonsense to go along with it. So he's
Yeah.
clearly fully talented and got a lot about him. So I'm looking forward to more and more of Harry Brook in the side. And obviously, he's done it in the County Championship on slightly less helpful pitches. Again, not necessarily against test level bowling, but 3 centuries in 4 innings in your first time in Pakistan, even if the pitches are a bit helpful,
But yeah,
you can't
you
knock
got
it, can you?
well, yeah, he's got 2 centuries, 150. He's at 9 sixes in his 369 runs in 5 innings, an average of 73.8, and what is most impressive, a strike rate of 99.46. Yeah, that is
Yep.
some couple of debuts, isn't it? So moving on, Ben Stokes didn't bowl at all in this
No.
test match, Max. And was it another captaincy masterclass? We know he's got some injury niggles, but this game was on the line. This was a real. This was going down to what, a 26-run margin is that's squeaky bum territory. But he trusted his bowling unit to get the job done without him. Was that a positive statement, or do we think that is him managing his body and managing his workload?
He did bowl a lot, didn't he, in Rawalpindi? Because obviously we went in with the 2 seamers, and then the 4 spinners, 3 part-time spinners and an actual spinner. So I mean, obviously only he will know the answer to this, but he so often relies on himself to be the guy that comes and breaks the game open when England need a wicket. So I can only suspect, especially with the fact that he picked Mark Wood and stuck with Ollie Pope as a part-time wicketkeeper to give himself the extra bowling option.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect there was an element of protecting himself in there, but
for the whole hard slog at Karachi next.
Yeah, because I mean, there's every chance if he brings Ben Folks back into the side that he'll need to pick up a bit more of the work. But once again, what can you say other than looking back at it that it worked. It worked again.
And it is interesting, right? Because the bowling unit for England, obviously Mark Wood coming in here, having a pace option where you've got a guy bowling 95 miles an hour or whatever he's bowling.
I mean, having a fit Mark Wood is quite a tool in the box, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I've written down here. It's very handy.
A classic bit of understatement.
And Mark Woods rightly did get the plaudits, but Ollie Robinson seems to be a bit of an unsung hero for this England lineup. He obviously was fat shamed last year by the bowling coach, but he's taken 22 wickets this year, an average of 17. Like, that is some pretty serious going, and this is only his second year of Test match cricket. He went through the whole awful racism tweet saga. He's been on that journey and going through being dropped, etc. But he's looking like he's starting to mature, and he's probably one of the first names down on the team sheet now from an England bowling lineup perspective.
I think so. I think he's universally good as well. We've seen him on these pitches in Pakistan extract something. Like he bowled a couple of balls in Rawalpindi which moved off the surface, which I didn't think was physically possible. So I'm really impressed.
Are you saying he could turn a cue ball on marble? Is that what you're saying?
I think he could. He's seriously impressed me. And what was it? Was it his second ball of the innings where he did Babar Azam, and then
That was disgusting delivery.
Outrageous.
That was like
Absolutely outrageous.
if you uploaded that to Pornhub, like it would that would be it's such explicit content. That if you haven't watched the delivery, go and watch it. It literally pitches maybe 2 feet outside off stump, and it literally jags back, and
Yeah.
Babra is
Babarazan rightly leaves it.
yeah. There's good leaves and bad leaves, but I mean that one. It felt like a good leave, and his off stump is out the ground. Yeah, it was remarkable.
Yeah. My favourite bit of captaincy from Ben Stokes was right at the end today, when Aga Salman just looked like he was, threatening to do it on his own. He was, how Ben Stokes did against Australia when they went for the tactic of, right, okay, it's fourth ball of the over, bring everyone in, and that was Ben Stokes's cue basically to, I'm going to hit a 6 or a 4 now, and then find that single to run. And England were doing the same thing, and Aga Salman had worked that out, except so the over before the wicket taking delivery, he had that opportunity off Mark Wood to try and get that single and get on strike, but because Jack Leach was bowling at the other end, I think he felt confident that Muhammad Ali could block it out. And I thought it was really a really good move from Ben Stokes at that point to go, actually, you know what? Let's see if Ollie Robinson can get a wicket from the number 11. And first ball of the over does so. That was a nice move from him, and I thought that was particularly impressive. But I mean, and again, England, they were attacking. They weren't worried about conceding runs. It was all about the wickets. And I mean, everything he touches at the moment is just turning to gold, isn't it? Everything's coming up Stokesy. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when things don't quite go to plan.
Yeah,
it's not really happened yet, has it?
yeah.
Apart from that one game against South Africa.
Yeah, and it is interesting. I think we've talked about the high performers for Pakistan. I think we've touched upon the high performers. I think a bit of praise needs to go to Ben Duckett as well, who's come in and looked at home. It's fair to say. And on a spinning track like this, to record scores of 79 and 63, I think he was especially good. What I did like about this England performance is the reverse sweep from the first ball of your innings. Ollie Pope did it, went for 4. Jack Leach did it, got clean bowled. And hopefully that's a sign of things to come as the entertaining team.
We don't want Jack Leach playing. I don't think he's played a reverse sweep in his life.
Well,
I don't know why. He still hasn't, based on that evidence. It wasn't good. I don't think. I think that's Jack Leach getting carried away, isn't it? I don't think Jack Leach needs to quite espouse the Bazball approach as much as the others. I'm quite happy with Jack Leach if he's coming in at number 9, just to maybe block the first ball and try and stay there and try and score some runs that way, because I don't think it's going to matter too much if England don't go at 7 and over with Jack Leach at the crease.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, Max, because you mentioned Bazball there. This is England's 8th victory out of 9. In all of those Test matches, we have taken the 20 wickets. So England's bowlers deserve a big heap of praise, as well as Ben Stokes' captaincy, and England's fielding to a certain extent as well. Like, if you go back 18 months, actually England had a bit of a problem dropping catches, etc. Yeah. And overall, the standard, the behaviours, the values that they're living is really transcending into their performances. It is great to see. There are a few caveats, though, Max, aren't there, that are typically thrown out at Bazball, and no doubt the Australians who beat West Indies, and we'll come on to that a little bit later, will be kind of saying, well, you've not played the big boys yet. You've played New Zealand on flat pitches. India, you would have lost if they would have finished the series in 2021. South Africa, pitches are not flat enough, and then Pakistan, they, as was mentioned earlier, kind of got they've got Haris Rauf out, Naseem Shah injured for this match. Yeah. They're also missing Shaheen Shah, Freedy. So if you take those 3 bowlers out of any lineup, right, it's going to be weakened. But Max, it just feels that whatever they're getting thrown at, they're adapting to those situations. I think there is a little bit of maybe some smarter cricket they could play. There is obviously this brash and aggressive style. And I think kind of the next evolution of this was to combine that with just some smarter play when you require it, right? That feels to me like the natural evolution.
Yeah, England just need to not get carried away with it a bit. I think that's the danger, is that England gets swept up in there. And they almost, I don't know, they almost become a parody of themselves at this point. But I think, at the moment, it's all coming up trumps. So I look
I'm on the
forward
roller
to.
coaster.
Yeah,
I
I'm here for the ride, baby.
want 1,000 runs in a Test match against Australia. That's what I want.
That would
Um,
be that would be the icing on the cake. I think we could just all quit at that point.
It would. And then the final bit on this match, Rex, is that Joe Root, well, saw this on ESPN earlier, he becomes the third ever player to achieve the double of 10,000 runs and 50 Test match wickets, following Steve Waugh and Jack Callis.
Wow.
That's some company to be in. But yeah,
Yeah.
Joe Root's off spin, yeah, handy, it's fair to say.
I think so. It is handy. I mean, Jack Leach brought up his 100th Test wicket, and Joe Root brought up his 50th. So, I mean, I don't know what the comparison in overs bowled for that is, but it's it's clearly useful. So I'm looking at now. Test cricket. Joe Root's bowled 4,352 balls for his 50 wickets. Jack Leach has bowled 7,183 balls for his 103. So obviously he's got a better strike rate, but it's not that much better. So
Yeah. And that was the death of Don Best, wasn't it? Really, Joe Root's part-time spin was actually better than his full-time spin.
Yeah, and that's, to be honest, why I think we might see Ben Folkes back in the side for the third Test. I think Will Jacks wasn't really used so much, and I'm not sure. I mean, Joe Root is pretty useful, and with Will Jacks not being used that much, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Folkes come back in instead of Jacks, as was sort of the plan in the first Test. Because I think Ollie Pope deserves a break from keeping wicket, to be honest. But I do think the decision to drop him does spell poor old Ben some troubles when Johnny Bairstow's back. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it does. Well, let's stay for the next Test match for a second. So this is historic, right? So we've won 2 Test matches in Pakistan. It's a huge accolade to kind of go. There's 1 match left in the series. Pakistan have never lost 3 Test matches at home in a Test match series. So there is a record again to be obliterated by the Bazball juggernaut. So do we reckon they'll play their best team they can and win that game and go for the 3-0? Or will they look to risk it as an opportunity to see something else? Because this team is one that clearly wants to win, but their kind of epoch, their philosophy is to it's not about winning, it's about the style of play that we want to go after, and it's about learning new things and learning more about us as a team. So could we see someone like Jack Leach sit out for this game and Rian Ahmed being given a go, or are they going to gun for 3-0?
I think they're going to gun for 3-0. Simply, I feel like the way things are going and sort of the good feeling around the side. I think, just from what I can tell, the way they want to go about it is just plowing on with that positive mindset and trying to win and making things work. And I think Rian Ahmed's there as much for the experience of being around a squad as anything. Potentially we might see Jamie Overton come in, or someone maybe Jimmy take a breather is the only other possible thing. But I mean, he's been excellent himself. So I
it could be a Mark Wood, couldn't it? Side. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I think so. And the reason I was kind of getting into this is to tee up this conversation around before. England always had one eye on the horizon, it felt like, right, from a selection point of view. It was always just like, oh, what about the Ashes? What about we need to make sure that, I don't know, Simon Kerrigan gets some overs in just in case he's needed in the Ashes or whatever it might be. And it doesn't feel like they are going to do that now. It feels like every single Test match is there to win. Every single Test match, they are there to win in their style, and they will pick the team that they feel has the best chance of winning. That's quite a refreshing attitude, if I'm perfectly honest. because the
Yeah.
county game is there to blood the likes of Rian Ahmed, right? The England Lions is there to do it. I think making test caps difficult to come by is a nice place to be. Will Jacks in this scenario, right, has got 2 caps. He's done a pretty good job. He was 6 for in the first game. Wasn't there to get a 6 for, but turned up for the books and did it nicely, and has hit a few handy 30s. I think I'm falling in love, Max, with this approach.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see your eyes popping out of your.
Well, I was as at the top of the show. I said I was a Spurs fan. I fell in love with the Maurizio Pochettino era. There's no shadow of a doubt. I was in love when Rafael van der Vaart was playing with Berbatov and Robbie Keane, and we had Gareth Bale and Modric in there. I'm feeling the same about this England team now, Max. I'm getting very much into it. I'm not going to go as far as getting a Barmy Army membership. I'm not quite at that point in my life.
Or trumpet.
But it is nice to. It's this warm, fuzzy feeling of hope is coming back, and yeah, it's a nice place to be.
It is. It's a nice place to be, and I think that's a nice place to leave this segment.
I do. Shall we move on to the other cricket that we've got? Because there's been a little bit of other cricket taking place at the moment, where India have been facing off against Bangladesh in an ODI series before playing them in some Test matches, and Australia also playing West Indies. Max. Some of our listeners have said it's unfair that you're labelling India personally as the kings of winning games that don't matter. So what would be your response to those critics?
Well, the evidence is in front of you. Yeah. Well, I mean, they every time it happened. I mean, usually it's like, what was it in the Asia Cup? It was Kohli scoring a ton, wasn't it? This time it was Ishan Kishan scoring the fastest double century in an ODI ever. Like, fair enough, that was awesome, and it's really nice to see
the rock star is back,
in particular, back in some form, and a little bit of hope for India that he may still be the star that they hoped he was. But yeah, you can't take away from the fact that at that point they were 2-0 down in an ODI series against Bangladesh. So there's always that to temper it. But hey, fair play to, and 2 very close games as well. It should be said, a 1-wicket win and a 5-wicket win for Bangladesh. But they they've got something in the ODI side that they clearly don't have in the T20s. And who was it in? Was it Mehdi Hassan in the?
It was, yeah. So he's player of the series. He's delivering on some of the potential that he has seen. He got a century and a twofer in the second game, and then in the 1-wicket victory in the first game, I think it was pretty much a runnable 38 and another wicket. Bangladesh are doing all right. They're when it comes to the ICC Super League kind of points. They're finishing. They're at the moment. They're second in the table with 8 wins, 4 losses. They're not a bad ODI side, and I think sometimes it's quite easy to wrap up what has been kind of some weird Test performances, some terrible T20 performances, right? But actually a format that sits just right. If Bangladesh are the Goldilocks of cricket at the moment, and the tepid nature of the ODI cricket,
suits them just fine.
Yeah, they were too much for India.
Well, they get enough practice, don't they? Because they play T20s like one day international, so they've just come off the back of a World Cup,
fully preparing for it.
Yeah,
and it is interesting, right? Because India at the moment they've got a bit of an identity crisis, I think, and they've obviously got the Test matches coming up. KL Rahul, big fan of the pod, is captaining the side because Rohit Sharma's got a hurty thumb, and yeah, I think it's an important set of games for them. Like Bangladesh are going to be bang up for this. They've clearly gone out and enjoyed themselves. Probably going to add a day at the spa or something. We're just like, you know what, we'll turn up. Doesn't matter if we lose, because we've already won the series. So it would be an intriguing Test match to follow. Australia, on the other hand, this has not been intriguing. By any stretch. The West Indies went over there, a depleted side through injury. At one point, I genuinely thought they were going to call up Brian Lara to actually have a bit of a bat.
Might as well have done.
Max, they've lost the series 2-0. The only person who's really coming out of it with any. Oh, actually, there's probably two. Obviously, their captain Craig Brathwaite hit another century. He's probably the. I think he's the only one from West Indies to hit a century in like the last 5 years or something ridiculous in Test match cricket. And Chanderpaul's son, Tagnarine,
Yes.
comes out of his first Test experience with 4 innings, 160 runs, an average of 40. You're taking that, aren't you?
You are. You're also taking that in Australia against Australia's pace attack. You know, that's a pretty serious baptism of fire, isn't it? Going down under and experiencing the likes of the Aussie Quicks. So
Joe Root in England's kind of thorn in the side. Scott Boland was taking more wickets.
He took a triple wicket maiden, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. So that makes us feel a bit better, right? Scott Boland, it wasn't just England he destroyed, it did the West Indies as well. Is that our level?
It's a bit interesting, right? Because if you're Scott Boland, you're sitting there thinking that my Australia career has probably passed me by. Like before this time last year, he's probably thinking, do you know what, that boat has probably sailed. And here he is having an unbelievable series last year in the Ashes, and recording a triple wicket maiden. You're satisfied with that. You can die happy. Off of that.
No, that's quite the. Yeah, it's almost like a cameo of a Test career, isn't it? That he's had, and it's gone pretty well for him. So you can't deny him that, can you? Fair play. But Australia, yeah, I mean the Ashes is the big one, isn't it? I got tickets. I got a ticket for the Oval. The day.
Nice.
I think we decided day 3 because you never know with the way England play cricket at the moment how long it's going to go. So we've gone for day 3 in the hope that it's the final day of the Test match and we get some good cricket in. But I will very much be looking forward to England testing Bazball against Australia. I just hope it doesn't go wrong before then.
I mean, you mentioned before around Johnny Bairstow. There's all kinds of different things to come into the equation, right, for that. And I think let's put that on ice. Let's enjoy what we've got in front of us at the moment.
It'll be honest before you know it, though, Ross.
Absolutely.
It's nearly Christmas.
And we will be coming up with bowling plans, right, to get rid of the bloke you've never heard of, Travis Head, who hit another big daddy century.
He did, yeah. Remaining nice and forgettable.
And then Marnus Champagne, which he might be renamed. He can't stop scoring runs, Marnus Labuschagne. It is ridiculous how annoyingly good he is, because the no-ran guy is quite spectacular.
First Test, wasn't it? Where didn't he and Smith both score double tons? Can you imagine having to stand in the field? Not just stand in the field, not being able to take a wicket and watching your oppos 3 and 4 rack up a partnership of 400, but like 9 hours of Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, having been to Old Trafford, having watched Steve Smith hit like 350 runs in person at the last Ashes when it was in England, I'm hoping that changes next year. But there we go, Max. We had a crushing victory of England's tour de force of Pakistan. They move on to Karachi next, and there might be a couple of changes. Pakistan need to at least went for it this time. We can't sit on this podcast and say they were cowards this time out. They went for it, and it was a much better advertisement for Test cricket than the first game. Amazing that it didn't take 5 years for them to roll out a relatively contestable Test match wicket, unlike Ramesh Raja thought. India have work to do, but probably have the edge over Bangladesh in the upcoming Test series. And Australia, they are peacocking their feathers ahead of the Ashes.
And one final thing, Ross. Australia's women lost a game of cricket.
Well, it's the way to do it. There's 2 final things, because I owe Sudeep I owe him a Kohli fact, so we'll finish off on that. And this is the blueprint for beating Australia, isn't it? It's to get them to a super over and then hope
score 21.
Hope that magic happens.
Score 21. Well, yeah, what a performance! Especially Australia racked up 187 for 1, and it's just like you think, here we go again.
Complacent. That's what I say. That is. I say it's complacent.
Yeah, I mean, surely there's more on the board that they could have got, and the I mean, Shafali Verma, Smriti Mandana, we know how good they are. But 26 off 13 for Richard Gosch was the unsurprising hero of that chase. And I mean, well, India are getting better and better, aren't they, in the women's game? And that's really good to see. But I mean, when was the last time Australia lost a game of cricket? I think finally someone's done it.
Yeah, well, it's because we took away their prized asset, right? Matthew Mott.
Yes, that's it.
Clearly, that's where the talent sits. But what we have, Max, is the Kohli fact. So
the Kohli fact, yeah.
So for those of you not aware, I've got to do 5 shows, and this is my second show that I'm doing, where I've got to share a fact about Virat Kohli.
An interesting one, hopefully.
Well, hopefully, it's going to be very, very difficult to top my first one, which was
great.
That he took. He is the only person to take his first international wicket off of his 0-balled bowled, as he got Kevin Peterson stumped off of a wide with Mahindra Singh Dhoni taking that. The second fact, Max, is that Virat Kohli and I actually share a stat, which is really quite nice. So as you know, I was doing the same count, wasn't I? How many centuries I had hit personally while Virat Kohli was going on that barren run. It's fair to say in the last couple of years, I've still got more centuries than Virat Kohli has, but that's rather near or there. What we do share in common is that in the IPL, neither of us have ever been auctioned. So there's a fun fact for you. He was picked as a catchment player in 2008, and then has been retained every single season since with the mighty Royal Challengers Bangalore.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I can't say I'm hugely surprised by that, because dropping Kohli as an IPL franchise is probably like signing your own death warrant. But
I mean, we would have done it. Let's be fair. If we were RCB, we would have been just like, do you know what? Getting back in the player pool, mate.
Big time. We don't need no anchors. Get out of here. But yeah, no. But very good. He has the same number of Premier League titles as Steven Gerrard as well, isn't it? Which is always a nice stat to roll out.
Well, let's finish on that. Footballing disappointment for England and Steven Gerrard, no doubt, again. Thank you ever so much for listening. Have a great week. And remember to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Cricket Pod. And if you want to sign up for a Patreon and get involved in one of the shows, then go on to Patreon/The Cricket Pod and sign up there.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.